Hey guys, so today we're going to look at the area of a triangle in coordinate geometry. So here's an example of a triangle on the plane. So you can see that this is a triangle where vertices x1, y1, x2, y2 and 0, 0. So in order for us to use the formula for the area of a triangle, one of our vertices must be this point 0, 0. Okay, so for a triangle with vertices x1, y1, x2, y2, and one of the vertices must be 0, 0, we can find the area using the following formula, and this formula is in your log tables. So just to put into your notes there that the formula is in the log tables, and to use this formula, one vertex must be 0, 0. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to use the formula, and then we're going to look at a question where none of the vertices are 0, 0, so we're going to have to move the triangle. Okay, so let's begin an example. Find the area of a triangle with vertices A42, B64, C00. Okay, so first of all, 42, we're going to call that point x1, y1, and we're going to call this point x2, y2. And that's just going to help us when we're going to feed it into our formula. Okay, so I have my points labels now, and step 2 is going to be to substitute the values into the formula. So my formula is a half, and then I have these lines. So I just want to point out, these lines here just mean absolute value, and it means that this number that we get in here can never be negative. Okay, so we're going to go ahead then and substitute in our points. So I have x1, which is 4, and I'm going to put these in brackets because they're multiply. All right, I have y2, which is also 4, minus I have x2, which is 6, and then I have y1, which is 2. Okay, that will give me, so a half, 4 by 4 is 16, minus 12, which will give me a half of 4, which will give me 2, and that's my final answer. Okay, so just another example there. The area of a triangle with vertices 2, 5, 0, 0 and 3, minus 6. So I have one of my vertices is 0, 0, so I can just go ahead and label my other points. So I'm going to label my other points x1, y1 and x2, y2. I'm going to write down my formula just so I have it there, and then I'm going to go ahead and substitute the numbers into the values. So I have a half, and my x1 is 2, and my y2 is minus 6. Okay, so just going to put them in brackets. Minus, and then I have 3 by 5. Okay, that will give me a half. 2 by minus 6 gives me minus 12. Minus 3 by 5 is 15. Now, so what I now have then is a half of 12 minus 15 is minus 27. Okay, but as I mentioned before, these lines here indicate that this is always going to be positive. They're called absolute value lines. So this means that my answer is going to be a half of 27, which a half of 27 will be 13.5. And that's my final answer. So just on a little note there, these are my absolute value lines, so just write that into your copy. And area is always positive. When we look at volume as well, volume is always positive. Remember I said to you before, my height is 5'6", or I'm 160 something meters. That's never going to be negative. I can never be negative 5'6". My weight can never be negative. It's always going to be positive. Okay, so we're going to go through an example now where we see that none of our vertices is the point 0, 0. And what we do in this case is we translate the points. So we literally just move the point, any one of these points, down to 0, 0, which shifts the whole triangle. Okay, so the first thing we do is we take one of the points and add or subtract to move it back to 0, 0. So I'm just going to take this first point, 3, 6. So if I want to move that back to 0, 0. Well, then I would have to take 3, okay, and take 6 from that point. And if I do that, I should get 0, 0. And then I'm just going to take the exact same values away from all of the other points so that I move my triangle correctly. Okay, so -3, -6, -3, -6. And if I do that, so I have 7 minus 3, which is going to give me 4. And I have 2 minus 6, which is going to give me -4. So that's one of my points. And my next one then, I have 4 minus 3, which gives me 1. And then I have 1 minus 6, which gives me -5. Okay, and now you can see that we have a triangle, the exact same triangle, just moved over on the plane so that one of our vertices is 0, 0. So now we can go ahead and use these two vertices to find the area. Okay, now as before then we just label our points x1, y1, x2, y2, and I'm going to use my formula then. And using that formula I have a half by x1, which is 4, y2, which is -5, minus x2, which is 1, and y1, which is -4, absolute value. So I have a half by -20, and -4 by 1 gives me -4, and minus by minus gives me a +4, which gives me a half -16, which we know is going to be a half of 16 because it's absolute value, which gives me 8. Just for area as well, we just get into the habit of writing units squared, because for area it's going to be square. And just to show you, this was an example out of your book, so that was the original triangle here, okay, and instead what they chose to do here was to move 4, 1 over to the point 0, 0, okay. So they decided to subtract 4, 1 the whole way across, and then get this point to 0, 0 and have these 2 points, but they still get the same answer as 8 units. So it does not matter which point you go with. Okay, so just to go through one more example from your book, it doesn't matter which point that you go with here, so just keep that in mind. I always tend to go with the first point, but you could go with this one or this one, it does not matter. Okay, so what I'm going to be looking to do here is to get this point x to 0, 0, and I know that if I add 1 here and I subtract 3, then my point will go to 0, 0. So if I do that, I'll get 0, 0. And from what we know, we have to do that the whole way across. So I'm going to add 1, subtract 3 to that point there. And I'm going to add 1 and subtract 3 to this point here. Okay, so let's look at what we get then when we do that. So I have 2 plus 1, which is going to give me 3. And then I have 2 minus 3, which is going to give me -1. And then I have 6 plus 1 gives me 7. And then I have -10 minus 3 gives me -13. So now I have my 2 points. I can go ahead and label them x1, y1, x2, y2. Go ahead and take down my formula then. And I'm just going to substitute my values in for that formula. So I have a half by x1, which is 3, y2, which is -13, minus x2, which is 7. And then I have y1, which is, sorry, shouldn't have put that there, minus 1. Okay, so a half of 3 by 13 gives me, minus 13 gives me minus 39. So I have minus 7 by minus 1 gives me plus 7. So that'll give me a half. Minus 39 plus 7 gives me minus 32. But we know that that's going to be a half of the absolute value of 32. And that's going to be 16 units squared. So just don't forget to put in that units squared. Unless they tell you what the units is. So that's pretty much it. Have a go at some of the questions I've set on Schoology.